In 1668, a British nobleman rented a pineapple for an entire evening. Not bought, rented. He carried it to a dinner party, set it on the table, and never ate a single slice. Just having it nearby was enough. That one fruit cost the equivalent of what a working family spent on housing for a full year. But here's the part nobody tells you. The pineapple sitting on that table had already survived wars, crossed oceans, and broken empires before it reached his hands. Drop a comment right now. What's the most you've ever spent on food? Because nothing you type will come close to this. For most people alive today, a pineapple means a $2 grocery store run or a debate about pizza toppings. It sits in the produce aisle between the mangoes and the melons, ordinary, ignored, slightly sticky. Nobody gives it a second glance. But for roughly 300 years, this fruit was one of the most dangerous status symbols on Earth. Empires fought over the land that grew it. Architects carved it into stone buildings as a mark of power. Kings served it at feasts to remind guests exactly who held authority in the room. And the people who actually harvested it, the ones whose hands bled pulling it from the soil, lived and died in a system of brutality designed to keep that fruit on European tables and nothing else. This is not a story about fruit. It is a story about power, obsession, and what happens when an entire civilization decides that one object defines whether you matter. Thousands of miles from any European eye, deep in the rainforests of South America, the pineapple began its life. Indigenous peoples across what is now southern Brazil and Paraguay had cultivated it for centuries, selectively growing wild varieties into the large, sweet fruit recognizable today. They called it nanas, meaning excellent fruit. It wasn't a delicacy to them. It was food, medicine, and a practical part of daily life. Fermented pineapple made a mild alcoholic drink. The fibers in the leaves were spun into cloth. The same bromelain enzyme that makes your tongue tingle when you eat raw pineapple was used to tenderize meat and treat wounds. Generations of careful agricultural knowledge had given these communities complete mastery over the plant. Knowledge European explorers never bothered to document or credit. What those explorers saw instead, when they arrived on those shores, was a fruit unlike anything they had ever tasted, and they wanted it. Christopher Columbus encountered pineapples on the Caribbean island of Guadeloupe in 1493 during his second voyage to the Americas. His crew was cautious at first, unfamiliar with the spiky exterior and the explosive sweetness inside. But once they tasted it, the reaction was immediate and unanimous. They loaded as many as the ships could carry, desperate to bring this fruit back to Spain. Most rotted during the Atlantic crossing. Only one survived the journey in edible condition, and that single pineapple was presented to King Ferdinand of Spain as a gift worthy of royalty. Ferdinand tasted it and reportedly called it the finest fruit he had ever encountered. That moment, one king eating one fruit, lit a fuse that would burn for the next 2 centuries. Getting more pineapples to Europe, though, was nearly impossible. And that impossibility is what made them lethal as a status symbol. Pineapples take between 18 months and 2 years to grow from plant to harvest. They cannot tolerate cold. They die on long ocean voyages. Every attempt to bring living plants across the Atlantic resulted in dead brown husks by the time ships reached European ports. The fruit that reached Europe at all arrived bruised, partially fermented, and so rare that only a handful of people on the entire continent tasted a fresh one in any given year. That scarcity created something Europe's ruling class had never seen before, a food that even unlimited money could barely purchase. And for the aristocracy of 17th century Europe, that made it irresistible. What happened next reshaped class structure, agriculture, and architecture across an entire continent. But the price of that obsession was something far darker than anyone in those gilded dining rooms chose to acknowledge. Ground zero for pineapple cultivation was the Caribbean, and with it came the full machinery of colonial brutality. British, French, Dutch, and Spanish planters understood that the only way to produce enough pineapples to supply European demand was to expand plantation systems built on enslaved labor. The same agricultural networks already devastating the Caribbean through sugar production expanded to accommodate pineapples. Enslaved Africans, torn from their communities and shipped across the Atlantic in conditions of unimaginable horror, worked the fields that kept pineapples flowing toward tables where aristocrats rented them as props. Growers never ate what they grew. Diners never saw the fields that fed them. That distance, physical, moral, and deliberately maintained, was the engine that kept the whole system running. Back in Europe, The obsession had reached a fever pitch that seems almost impossible to believe today. English aristocrats commissioned pineries, elaborate heated greenhouses built at enormous expense, just to grow pineapples on home soil. The construction of a single pinery could cost more than building a manor house wing. Gardeners spent years mastering the exact temperature, humidity, and soil conditions required. Wealthy landowners who successfully grew a pineapple in England were treated as technological geniuses, their achievement reported in newspapers as though they had performed a minor miracle. Carved into stone pillars, stitched into tapestries, painted into portraits, commissioned as the crowning ornament on architectural rooftops. A pineapple motif on your building told every visitor that you were wealthy enough to afford one. Power communicated without a single spoken word. Renting became its own booming trade, and it was entirely calculated. Families who could not afford to buy a pineapple, and even many who could, rented the same fruits repeatedly from luxury food brokers. A single pineapple might travel to 15 dinner parties before it finally rotted beyond display. The guests at each table understood exactly what they were looking at. Nobody needed to explain the cost. The fruit explained itself. Then a single invention cracked the entire structure open, almost overnight. In the 1880s, industrial canning technology transformed what was possible in food production. Henry Janaka, an engineer working for James Dole's Hawaiian Pineapple Company, invented a machine in 1913 that could peel, core, and slice a pineapple in a single mechanical pass. Dole industrialized Hawaiian pineapple production at a scale nobody had attempted before. Thousands of acres, hundreds of workers, millions of cans shipped annually to grocery stores across America and Europe. Within a generation, the fruit that had defined aristocratic power for 2 centuries cost pennies. The same pineapple that men had once rented for parties to signal their status sat stacked in tin cans on supermarket shelves available to anyone with spare change. The symbol had been democratized entirely, and the class system that had been built around it evaporated so quickly that within 50 years, most people had completely forgotten it had ever existed. Underneath that Hawaiian pineapple empire, though, ran a darkness of its own. Dole's expansion into Hawaii came at enormous cost to the native Hawaiian population, whose lands were acquired through a combination of legal manipulation, political pressure, and the quiet machinery of American colonial power in the Pacific. The same pattern that had played out in the Caribbean centuries earlier repeated itself in new geography. The people connected to the land lost it, and the people who profited from it lived somewhere else entirely. Today, the pineapple industry is dominated by countries like Costa Rica, the Philippines, and Thailand. Workers in those supply chains often earn wages that bear no relationship to the retail price of the fruit in Western markets. The industrial monoculture farming of pineapples has caused documented soil degradation and pesticide contamination in growing regions. And the bromelain enzyme that indigenous South Americans used as medicine centuries ago is now a commercially extracted ingredient sold in supplements worth billions of dollars annually, rarely with any acknowledgement of where that knowledge originated. So the next time you see a pineapple in a grocery store, or spot one carved above a doorway on an old building, or slice one open without a second thought, pause for just a moment and consider what you're actually looking at. You're looking at a fruit that crossed oceans and broke people, a fruit that built and destroyed fortunes, a fruit that told the world, for 300 years, that beauty and power and status were things you could eat if you could afford the price of admission. The pineapple didn't change. Only the price did. And when the price dropped, nobody noticed what had been lost. That is a story worth sitting with. And if you want another one, the next video shows exactly how a different ordinary object quietly changed the course of history in ways far bigger than anyone guessed. It is on your screen right now. Subscribe so you don't miss it. Drop a like if this changed the way you see something simple, and tell me in the comments, what surprised you most about the fruit you thought you already knew?